The Lion King might have been sold to us as a heartwarming Disney classic about the circle of life, but let's be real, it's more like the circle of family trauma. Everyone remembers Simba and Mufasa's iconic bond, Scar's villainy, and Timon and Pumbaa singing about bugs like they were a Michelin-star meal. But if you've read The Lion King: Six Adventures, you will know that Disney never really told us how deep the cracks in this royal family ran. See, behind Mufasa's booming voice and Scar's permanent scowl was a father we never got to meet in the movie. His name, Ahadi. His fault, naming his son Trash. I know, we'll get to that soon. Now, technically, I know, you do see Ahadi in the 2019 CGI remake. Sort of, Disney never says his name, but that lion with the darker mane, green eyes, and that air of I'm silently judging everyone at the watering hole, yeah, that's him. The problem is, he's basically treated like background scenery. No backstory, no dialogue, nothing to explain why his two sons grew up with enough emotional baggage to fill Pride Rock twice over. It's like Disney wanted to throw hardcore fans a bone. Hey, look, we didn't forget about Scar and Mufasa's dad. But then refused to commit. Instead of giving him any weight in the story, they reduced him to a glorified extra, which kind of defeats the whole point of exploring why this family fell apart in the first place. But in the semi-canon books, he plays a way bigger role in shaping the disaster of a sibling rivalry between Mufasa and Scar. Basically, if the brothers were two halves of a broken mirror, Ahadi's fingerprints are all over the cracks. So, who was Ahadi? In a series of storybooks Disney licensed back in the 90s, Ahadi is introduced as the father of Mufasa and Scar, a king more focused on ruling the savannah than telling bedtime stories. That's Ahadi. He wasn't exactly bad dad of the year, but let's just say he made some questionable parenting choices. The books describe Ahadi as a strict, no-nonsense ruler. He was fair and responsible, sure, but when it came to Scar, or Taka as he was known then, he kept his distance. Mufasa was the golden child, the natural leader, the obvious heir. Scar had brains and cunning, but he was forever stuck in his brother's shadow. And Ahadi didn't exactly balance the scales. He piled on praise and responsibility for Mufasa, while Taka mostly got lectures or cold shoulders. That's where the cracks really show. Ahadi wasn't abusive. It's not like he locked Scar in a cave and threw away the key, but favoritism is its own kind of poison. Every proud nod toward Mufasa doubled as a reminder to Scar that he'd never be enough. Not exactly the pep talk you want when you're growing up in a kingdom where strength decides your worth. So while Ahadi barely gets fairly remembered on screen, in the extended Lion King lore, he's the quiet spark behind Scar's bitterness. Without him, we might not have gotten the sarcastic, scheming villain we all know. And honestly, it's kind of wild that Disney skipped over this, because it turns the royal drama from a tale of destiny into a full-blown case study in generational dysfunction. If Scar inherited the resentment, Mufasa inherited the spotlight. From the start, Ahadi made it clear who the golden boy was. Mufasa was the textbook alpha type. Broad shoulders, thick mane, the kind of lion that just looked like a king. He's the classic African lion archetype, bigger, bulkier, the kind that dominates a pride both in presence and in biology. Scar, though, was a different story. Leaner frame, darker mane, sharp features. He resembles what you'd see in Asiatic lions or less dominant males in a pride. In the wild, mane size and color actually affect how lions are perceived. Darker, fuller manes signal strength, maturity, and health. That's why lions like Mufasa, with that main character mane, are respected and trusted almost on sight. Scar's sleeker, scruffier look? In real lion society, that puts him at a disadvantage. Females prefer the darker mane males, and rival males think twice before picking a fight with them, which means a lion like Scar would constantly be fighting perception as much as reality. And that's the trap Ahadi locked him into. By putting all the weight of leadership and pride on Mufasa, the lion who naturally looked the part, he left Scar boxed into the role of the outlier. Not strong enough, not visually commanding enough, not king material. And then simply Mufasa grew into the regal, commanding figure we remember. But all that glory stood on a pedestal built from imbalance. One son born looking like a king, the other born looking like an afterthought in a world that values strength, you can see. So while Mufasa was being polished into royalty, Taka was left trying to figure out where he fit in. He was clever, too clever, really, but in a world where brute strength and kingly presence were everything, brains didn't get you much applause. Like any kid desperate to get noticed, Taka went looking for his big moment. In A Tale of Two Brothers, he finally thought he found it, a dangerous buffalo roaming the Pride Lands. He begged a hottie to let him handle it alone, hoping that if he pulled it off, maybe, just maybe, he'd earn the same respect Mufasa always got. But it backfired. The buffalo charged, Taka was badly injured, and the wound left him with the scar that would literally define who he became. And instead of comfort, instead of even a shred of reassurance, Ahadi's reaction was to scold him for being reckless. Imagine that. You're lying there, bleeding and humiliated, and your father's takeaway is basically, well, that's what you get. From that moment, Taka's story shifted. He wasn't the other brother anymore. He was the brother branded by failure. Even his new name, Scar, was like a constant reminder that he'd tried, he'd failed, and he'd never measure up. And when you live under a label like that, frustration doesn't just stay frustration, it curdles. What began as jealousy slowly hardened into bitterness, then bitterness into resentment, and finally resentment into the sharp wit and venomous sarcasm we recognize in Scar. If Ahadi had one specialty, it was causing damage without even realizing it. He probably thought he was being a strong, balanced king, raising two sons with different strengths. But in practice, he was fueling a rivalry that would one day end in blood. When you constantly praise one child for being dependable while scolding the other for being reckless, I mean, this guy, Ahadi, literally named his son Taka, which in Swahili means dirt or garbage. Yeah, imagine your parents looking at you and basically naming you trash. Meanwhile, his big brother Mufasa gets a royal, kingly name that means king in Manazoto. If that doesn't scream favoritism, I don't know what does. And look, kids can be cruel, but when that cruelty starts at home with your own name, that stuff leaves a mark. In a way, Scar was branded as second best from the start. To be fair, Ahadi's choices made sense on paper. Mufasa was the safe bet. Strong, steady, respected. Scar? Brilliant, sure, but also unpredictable. Instead of channeling that intelligence into something useful, Ahadi kept Scar at arm's length, basically sending the message, you'll never rule, so why bother trying? By the time we catch up with them in The Lion King, the damage is already done. Mufasa is the king everyone respects, Scar is the brother everyone tolerates, and their relationship is this strange cocktail of duty, resentment, and snide remarks. Mufasa clearly sees himself as the authority figure even to his fully grown brother. He talks down to Scar, gives him warnings, reminds him of his place. On the surface, it looks like typical sibling banter, but the undertone is power struggle disguised as casual conversation. What's fascinating is that Scar never outright rebels at this stage. He still bows, still follows the hierarchy, still plays his role in the circle of life, even if he's gritting his teeth the whole time. It's almost like he's waiting for his chance, simmering under years of built-up resentment. And when you think about it, that twisted loyalty is almost sad. He wanted the throne, yes, but he also wanted the respect he'd never been given. In fact, I would say he wanted the throne to prove the worth of himself that he was never given. Here's the thing about family drama, it doesn't stay locked in the past. The mess between Ahadi, Mufasa, and Scar didn't just affect their generation, it bled right into Simba's story too. Think about it. Simba spends half the movie trying to live up to his father's impossible legacy. That's the same shadow Scar was stuck under his whole life. The only difference I see is Simba eventually finds a way to grow through it, while Scar let it consume him. Two lions, same pressure, totally different outcomes. It's almost poetic in a tragic way. Scar and Simba got the same pressure, but Simba also had a very different kind of support from Nala, Rafiki, even Timon and Pumbaa, of all people. Scar never had that, and without it, he became the villain that Simba had to defeat, essentially ending the cycle that started with Ahadi. Disney sold us a tale about talking lions, catchy songs, and some of the best villain lines in animation history. But now, it's a full-blown family tragedy for me. Do you think Simba would have been a good king if Mufasa was still alive? 'Cause I have, well, other opinions.